Discovered. The incredible night. My hidden ADT security alarm exposed a life-changing truth. Sarah sat at the cluttered dining table, the shadows of late evening casting a somber hue over the paperwork sprawled before her. The ticking clock loudly echoed the late hour as she tried to focus on Mia's homework. The frustration of an intricate math problem clawed at Sarah while Leo, obliviously lost in a world of colorful Lego blocks, giggled softly. Far removed from their mother's anxiety, bills lay next to scribbled promissory notes, each paper a reminder of the struggles that came with being a single parent and a dedicated nurse. Just what would they eat tomorrow? Then, without warning, the new ADT security alarm shrieked, piercing through the silence and startling Sarah. She leapt up, heart thumping, fumbling her phone as she reached for the device to silence it. A red light glowed ominously. In a panic, she pressed buttons, but it remained unresponsive. Glancing at the feed screen, she froze. Instead of her home, it displayed a live feed from next door, Mr. Thompson's house. The hollow words of two men filled the room, cold and conspiratorial. Just make sure no one else finds out. They'll ruin everything. The stranger's voice sent a chill through her bones. Mr. Thompson, once a beacon of their community, laughed nervously. Trust me, it's all under control. They won't suspect a thing. A knot twisted in Sarah's stomach. How could this man, who'd repaired their lawnmower and shared popsicles with Mia and Leo, be involved in such sinister dealings? Exploiting their neighbors? The community's trust felt shattered with each passing word. She pressed her fingers to her temples, the weight of the revelation crushing her resolve. Should she close her ears to the truth she now bore, prioritizing her children's safety? Or should she confront the moral dilemma head-on, not just for herself, but for the vulnerable whose lives could be at risk? Could she face the repercussions of angering someone like him, knowing how precarious her financial stability was? As time slipped on, so did her internal battle. She wrung her hands, pondering the vulnerability of her situation. A sudden thought sent a shiver down her spine. Every day as a nurse, she fought for her patients, advocating for their care. How could she teach her children the value of justice if she chose silence? But her pulse raced with the realities of possible retaliation. Mom, we can't let him hurt people. Mia's innocent voice pierced the storm of her thoughts. Sarah turned, heart swelling with pride and fear simultaneously. Mia looked at her with wide, fearless eyes, a small warrior standing at the edge of a great moral chasm. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah gripped the edge of the table, torn. The very ground beneath her feet felt unstable. Mia. She hesitated. The word lingered in the air, heavy with implication. Could her daughter really understand the full weight of this choice? The image of Mr. Thompson and his smirk danced in her mind. Each moment stretched painfully thin. Her resolve threatened to shatter. Staring into the depth of her child's hopeful gaze, uncertainty gnawed at her. Would her family stay intact if she chose to fight? Or would they lose everything? The decision loomed, a swift, unyielding specter hanging over them. Life wouldn't wait as the shadows of dishonesty began to creep further into their reality. Breath catching in her throat, Sarah's heart raced. Time stood still as she faced a crucial crossroads. Would she muster the courage to act, to protect those too afraid to speak? The air hummed with tension, thick with possibilities, leaving her paralyzed and breathless, poised on the brink of change. The silence that followed Mia's plea felt like a chasm, stretching impossibly wide. Sarah's mind raced. Facing Mr. Thompson could mean unraveling everything she had tenuously held together. How could she explain to Mia what it truly meant to stand up for those who couldn't? Her heart tightened at the thought of failing her children, failing herself. A grim determination began to rise within her, an unyielding shadow of courage fighting to emerge. "Mom, what are we going to do?" Mia's voice gently tugged at Sarah, reminding her of the fragile lives that depended on her. I don't know yet," Sarah replied, each word feeling more hollow than the last. Clarity was shrouded in chaos, but one thing was becoming painfully evident. She could no longer remain a passive observer. As the day slipped into night, Sarah's focus sharpened. Decisions must be made. She couldn't rely solely on the alarm to protect her family anymore. She needed to become an active participant in safeguarding their lives. The weight of the challenge loomed. Still, the thoughts of her nursing profession fueled her resolve. Every patient she fought for had relied on her strength. She was capable. She had the heart of a warrior, even when life felt as manageable as a crumbling sandcastle under a tidal wave. She shot Mia a reassuring smile, intending to embody the courage she needed to summon. "We need to gather information first. Knowledge is power," she said, drawing on her background as a nurse, where research often led to solutions. It was time to understand the full scope of what was happening next door before taking action. One thought crystallized in her mind. She would call her friend Jenna, the local reporter with an instinct for uncovering the truth. If anyone could help her navigate this situation without raising suspicion, it would be Jenna. But would bringing someone else into the mess put both her and her children in greater danger? Doubt flickered like a candle's flame within her, but the possibility of making a stand propelled her forward. "Mom, seriously, he's bad, we can't just sit here," Mia insisted, catching her off guard. Sarah sighed, exhaling the rising tension. The desperation in her daughter's voice was genuine, fueled by the moral outrage only a child could express so unabashedly. "Okay, Mia." She took a moment to gather her thoughts. "Let's do it together, but we'll be careful." As Sarah dialed Jenna's number, adrenaline coursed through her veins. The phone buzzed in her ear as the line connected. What would she say? How would she frame the information she had come across without seeming alarmist? She opened her mouth to speak, suddenly realizing she feared the reaction. Not just from Jenna, but from the world that could suddenly feel much bigger and more dangerous. Jenna's voice broke through the waves of uncertainty. "Sarah, how's everything? You sound off." Taking a deep breath, Sarah plunged into the precarious conversation. With each word, she recounted her observations, probing, searching for the right approach. But she could feel the weight of risk pressing down on her. Was she compromising her family's safety? The doubt lingered as she waited for a response, the air heavy and thick with unspoken fears. What if Jenna dismissed her worries as paranoia? The answer cracked the silence like thunder. "Sarah, if what you're saying is true, I'll help you. We'll find out what's really going on." A strange comfort rose within her. For the first time, Sarah felt less alone. They would strategize together. However, her battle was just beginning. Yet, in the back of her mind, questions began to swirl. What would happen when the truth came to light? How far would Mr. Thompson go to protect himself? The fear was visceral. It clawed at her instincts. But now she was committed to uncovering the reality hidden in the shadows. As her chat with Jenna ended, Sarah looked over at Mia and Leo, their innocent faces filled with unyielding faith in her. It felt like both a blessing and a burden. The fragility of their safety motivated her in ways she had never felt before. Determination surged within her, She had crossed a threshold she couldn't return from. The power of knowledge and truth could be daunting, but embracing the unknown also held the key to protection. Now, she needed to prepare herself for the challenges that lay ahead. The stakes were escalating, and the moment of truth was dawning. Underneath it all, a voice whispered. She wasn't just protecting her children. She was stepping into a new version of herself. Just as she began to contemplate her next steps, an ominous tap echoed through the quiet house, causing her heart to accelerate in her chest. She turned toward the sound, and her breath caught in her throat. Who was at the door? The confrontation was drawing closer, and Sarah realized she might not be as ready as she believed. The tap at the door reverberated in Sarah's mind, increasing her heartbeat to an erratic rhythm. A rush of cold air grazed her skin, leaving her feeling vulnerable and exposed. She steadied her breath, forcing her instincts to quiet. Fear, while palpable, could not paralyze her now. Her children depended on her courage. She glanced at Mia and Leo, the children's wide eyes reflecting an innocent curiosity, unaware of the danger lurking just outside their safe haven. Protecting them wasn't merely about confronting Mr. Thompson. It was about establishing a space where they could thrive, untainted by the darkness of the world outside. Taking a step towards the door, it dawned on her that every decision she made now would impact not only her life, but also theirs. What was that? Mia whispered, craning her neck for a better view. I don't know, honey, but I'll check, Sarah replied, her voice steadier than her insides felt. Stepping into the hallway, she forced herself to act calmly. With careful deliberation, she approached the door, her mind racing through possibilities. Perhaps it was just a neighbor. Perhaps curiosity from the outside world was demanding her attention. But what if it was Mr. Thompson? That thought sliced through her resolve like a knife. Peering through the peephole, Sarah scanned the exterior. Her heart sank. It was Jenna, standing there, her expression taut with urgency. Sarah opened the door, quickly pulling Jenna inside, the bitterness of the evening air fading behind them. Did I interrupt something? Jenna's voice dripped with concern, her journalist instincts peaking. No, not at all. I'm glad you're here, Sarah replied, shutting the door as Mia and Leo hovered nearby, intrigued. I didn't want to alarm you, but the investigation. I was able to dig up some files on Thompson. There's more here than what we initially thought. Jenna began, her words tumbling out as if the weight of her revelations could no longer be contained. He has a history. There were complaints filed years ago about his behavior toward kids in the neighborhood. A chill seeped into Sarah's bones at the thought. What other shadows loomed in the past that she had unknowingly stepped into? The pressure was gathering, something larger than her fear starting to coalesce around her. What kind of behavior? Sarah's voice trembled, curiosity clawing her stomach. Altercations, confrontations. There's even a protective order, but it's buried under layers of bureaucracy. People are afraid to speak up. Jenna's gaze locked onto Sarah's, the gravity of the moment anchoring them both. What do you mean afraid? Sarah prompted, her own past experiences pressing against her, intensifying her deep-seated moral outrage. I mean... Jenna paused, weighing her words. They fear retaliation. He has a tight grip in this community, and speaking out could bring unwanted consequences. But if we alert the authorities, and more importantly, the community, it may not just protect your children, it could save others. Jenna's conviction sparked a flicker of hope within Sarah, yet a gnawing suspicion lingered like fog on a mountain. Would their actions help? Not just her children, but everyone? Or would it unleash something darker? But how do we proceed? Sarah asked, her heart racing again. Knowledge, once a lifeline, was now a double-edged sword. We gather evidence. Footage, witness statements. We need to be meticulous, strategic. We could even set up a discreet system to ensure safety. Jenna suggested, enthusiasm igniting her eyes. In Sarah's mind, the idea bloomed, intertwining with her nursing instinct to protect and advocate for the vulnerable. She could visualize launching a covert operation to gather information. Each calculated step felt like a return to her professional roots, those harrowing nights spent advocating for patients. She was familiar with the stakes and the notion of courage woven tightly into confrontation. Sensing Sarah's transformation, Jenna's excitement rippled through the air. "Are you in?" Just then, Leo spoke up, breaking the tension. "Mom, are we doing something with Mr. Thompson?" The innocence of his question broke the moment, reminding Sarah of what was truly at stake. She knelt down, pulling him into a hug, her heart swelling with the realization of her dual identity as a mother and warrior. "Yes, my love. We are. But it's complicated." Her voice became softer, protective. "We need to be brave. There's justice to seek, and it starts right here." As the weight of their decision settled around them, the doorbell chimed again, this time louder and more insistent. Sarah's gut quivered. The world outside was closing in. "Stay here," she instructed Mia and Leo, her heartbeat racing as she tiptoed once more toward the door. The confrontation was no longer abstract. It loomed like a predatory shadow, and she was hurtling towards it, filled with an urgency to act before it swallowed them whole. Drawing a deep breath, she prepared herself for whatever awaited her. Her resolve ignited anew. The time had come to discover how far she would go to protect her children. The unfolding story was beginning to reveal a truth she'd long avoided acknowledging. Courage demanded conviction and action. But just as she reached for the doorknob, a thought flickered to the forefront of her mind. Was she ready to face the consequences of uncovering the truth? As she turned the handle, Sarah stepped forward into the unknown. The door creaked open, revealing two figures illuminated by the soft glow of the porch light. It was her neighbor, Mrs. Wilcox, and a man Sarah recognized from the community. A local handyman named Eric. Their faces, taut with concern, deepened Sarah's apprehension as they stepped into her living room, clearly having arrived at a crucial moment. "Sarah, we heard about Mr. Thompson," Mrs. Wilcox stated, her voice trembling slightly. "We knew you and the kids might be in danger." Her heart plummeted yet lifted simultaneously. People were acknowledging her fears, validating her instincts. But the looming threat of Mr. Thompson hung over her like a storm cloud, heavy and oppressive. "What do you know?" Sarah asked, searching their faces for some garnish of hope amidst chaos. "He's been acting strange lately," Eric replied, his brows furrowing. "I overheard him at the park, talking to some kids. It didn't sit right with me." Mia and Leo peeked from behind Sarah's legs, their eyes wide but alert to the palpable tension in the air. It was time to shield them. Yet the growing community support sparked something unexpected in her. A sense of purpose, a desire to not only protect her children, but to ensure the safety of every child in their neighborhood. "Do you want to do something?" Jenna's voice was firm, breaking the charged silence. "We need to make sure people know what's happening. This isn't just about you or your kids. It's about creating awareness." "But how?" Sarah felt divided, her protective instincts clashing with a deep-rooted fear of retaliation. What if it backfires? What if exposing him only puts more people at risk? The shadows of doubt pulled at her resolve. "We might not have the luxury of time, Sarah," Jenna interjected, her eyes narrowing. "You know what's at stake." A surge of determination coursed through Sarah. She had spent nights caring for patients, advocating for the helpless, and now her instinct, to nurture and protect, was rising to the surface, demanding expression. "We need to take action," she declared. The words tumbled out before she could second-guess them. It felt suddenly alive, the fear transforming into a weapon of strength. Mrs. Wilcox nodded. "We need to gather those who've seen things, maybe even get them to talk anonymously at first. If Thompson has a history, there must be others who know." With newfound clarity, Sarah turned to Jenna, who appeared renewed by Sarah's resolve. "Let's create a secure way for people to share their experiences. Something that doesn't risk exposure." A plan formed in Sarah's mind. A confidential line for parents to report concerns. Perhaps even a forum where testimonies could be shared anonymously online. She could leverage her nursing experience and analytical mind to navigate these murky waters and protect her kids while also connecting with others who were willing to stand against the looming darkness. "Can we create flyers? Maybe talk to a few trusted families?" Sarah asked, energy surging through her. This was her moment. Each word radiated from her core, ignited by the love for her children and every child in danger. "I can help with the design," Jenna suggested, excitement glimmering in her eyes. "Count me in for distribution," Eric added, the weight of responsibility etching his resolve. As they began structuring their plan, Sarah's defenses melted away. Each idea exchanged was a brick laid in the wall of protection they were building. Mia's voice broke through, innocent and tentative. "Can we help too?" Curious eyes searched the room for affirmation. In that moment, Sarah realized the new path they were embarking on wasn't solely about confrontation. It was about teaching courage and resilience to her children. "Of course you can. You're on the front lines with us," Sarah replied, pride swelling within her. "We'll do this together." As they mapped out their next steps, Sarah couldn't ignore the feeling that they were embarking on an expedition into the unknown. Although fear still whispered menacingly, her determination to shield her children had ignited a fierce resolve that could chart a new course for their lives. Yet, as they drew up plans for the coming days, a sense of dread invaded her thoughts. Was this newfound community standing with her indeed powerful enough to face the repercussions Thompson could unleash? Fueled by her commitment and the growing network of allies, she prepared for the confrontation that loomed on the horizon. With voices strengthened by shared purpose, Sarah took a careful step forward. Would their efforts be enough to unveil the darkness surrounding Mr. Thompson, or would they stumble into an even murkier abyss? The answer awaited them, hanging just beyond the edges of their fledgling crusade. The following days blurred into a whirlwind of activity and anxious anticipation. As Sarah sifted through the papers for the flyers, she felt an indignant energy fueling her. The words, "We are gathering stories to protect our children," echoed in her mind. Each time she shared her plans with her neighbors, her voice grew steadier, reaffirming her purpose. But beneath that steady conviction lurked a gnawing worry. What if all this energy, this momentum, was merely her own desperate plea for safety echoing in an abyss? The unrelenting anxiety twisted in her gut. Could they truly stand up to Mr. Thompson? The man who had traversed their block like a shadow, smiling too wide, speaking too softly. The lingering fear etched deeper into her as every moment passed. That evening, as Sarah navigated through the chaos of her own kitchen, dinner simmering, children scurrying about, her phone buzzed. Jenna had sent her a simple message. "I found someone." Her heart raced while a mix of trepidation and bold curiosity washed over her. A witness? Who? Sarah typed quickly, stifling her anticipation. "Mrs. Hartman. They live down the street. The kids used to play with them. She saw Thompson with her daughter." The minutes crawled by as Sarah waited for more information, her heartbeat drumming in sync with her growing urgency. When the reply finally came, it felt like a pin drop amid silence. She said it didn't feel right, but she didn't think much of it until now. The weight of those words pressed on Sarah's chest. The swirling doubts coalesced into galvanized determination. She knew this was more than just neighbors sharing tales. It was gathering indisputable evidence for the children's safety. The next morning she took a calculated risk. She would visit Mrs. Hartman personally, turning her trepidation into a purposeful resolve. Grabbing the flyers, Sarah steeled herself as she made her way down the street. Each step was tethered with anxiety but propelled by duty. Mrs. Hartman answered the door hesitantly, her eyes narrowing slightly as she registered Sarah's familiar face. But that wary look soon melted into a warm acknowledgement. "I hear you're quite the crusader these days," she offered weakly, a hint of admiration mixed with disbelief. "Can we talk? I need to hear what you saw." Sarah pressed, her voice firm despite the uncertain quiver in her stomach. Mrs. Hartman invited her in, curiosity now intermingling with urgency. Sarah listened intently, nodding along as Mrs. Hartman shared her concerns about Mr. Thompson. The sunlight filtering through the window cast long shadows, mirroring the weight of their conversation. "He would always give my daughter little gifts," Mrs. Hartman said, voice thick with the effort of reliving discomfort. "I brushed it off as harmless, but now I'm not sure." A chilling silence enveloped the room as Sarah processed the implication. Was it mere intentions misinterpreted? Or was it a malevolent attempt to groom? The question echoed in her mind, pounding against her resolve. So many others had trusted their instincts too late. Standing in Mrs. Hartman's living room, Sarah's mind reeled, internalizing not just the weight of their shared fears, but the shimmers of newfound strength that the conversation sparked within her. She was becoming a conduit for change, not only organizing a community action but also shedding light on what had been hidden. With a gut filled with purpose, she handed Mrs. Hartman a flyer, her heart racing when she realized she was also inviting her into this developing narrative. "If you're comfortable, would you be willing to share this with others?" "I will," Mrs. Hartman replied, an unexpected fierceness sparking in her eyes. "This needs to be addressed." As Sarah returned home, she felt a complex concoction of dread and exhilaration. She was building not just a safety network, but an interconnected web of vigilance. The determination to unveil Mr. Thompson and galvanize community action had fortified her. Yet the gravity of the repercussions weighed heavily on her mind. Her children played outside as she processed everything, and a wave of protective instinct washed over her. Would this new course lead them to safety, or would it merely invite danger to their doorstep? Just as the sun dipped below the horizon, a knock at the door shattered her thoughts. Standing there was Eric, a concerned expression lining his face. "I think Thompson's been looking for you." That moment crystallized an urgency within Sarah. The confrontation was not just looming. It had arrived. She would be tested on every front, the lessons she had amassed transforming into armor for the battle ahead. With her heart pounding, Sarah steeled herself for whatever came next. The time had come to face the darkness directly. Would her newfound courage be enough to withstand it? The air hung heavy with tension as Sarah stood frozen in her doorway, her mind racing. Eric's words replayed in her head like an ominous chant. Thompson was looking for her? She could almost feel the man's shadow stretching across her lawn, cold and calculated. "Have you seen him?" she asked, her voice surprisingly steady. "Not since I got home, but my friend across the street spotted him watching you from his porch last week." Eric's gaze pierced through her facade of calm, searching for signs of fear, perhaps expecting her to tremble. But Sarah felt that quaking boil of resolve mixing with dread. "I can't let this go on. I need to do something." "Doing something is great, but we have to be careful. This is a dangerous game," Eric cautioned, his voice laced with concern. She allowed his words to settle in, weighing them against her growing determination. Despite the spikes of fear that surged, she was beginning to recognize her own strength. It was more than just protecting her children. It was about standing tall against the creeping darkness that sought to intimidate. We can gather our neighbors tonight. We can share what we know, Sarah suggested, doubt leaking into her voice. But can I really do this? The quiet question gnawed at her insides. I think you already have, Eric replied. Look at how far you've come. You've talked to Mrs. Hartman. You're sharing those flyers. You've ignited something. His acknowledgement sparked a flicker of belief in her. As they discussed plans, the conversation circled around how to rally the neighborhood effectively without alerting Thompson. Sarah felt a wave of anxiety mingle with excitement at the prospect of taking direct action. This was not just about confronting an individual, but about galvanizing a community into understanding their power. Later that evening, Sarah took a moment alone before her children's bedtime. In the quiet darkness, she lit a few candles and sat on the floor, cross-legged, staring at the flickering light. She reflected on her journey. The timid woman who avoided confrontation was now embracing the role of protector. Moving forward meant putting aside her fears to face the unsettling truth lurking in shadows. With newfound clarity, she began drafting an outline for her talk with the neighbors. She would emphasize caution but also the importance of vigilance. Each word formed would be a drop of resolve, pooling into a stronger mission. The next morning came with a tangible urgency. She slipped out of bed before sunrise, caffeine coursing through her veins as she prepped flyers loaded with stories of both Mrs. Hartman and her own experience. With each flyer, she not only spread information, but also carved out a sense of solidarity among those who didn't yet realize their strength. As the sun rose higher, casting soft hues across her neighborhood, Sarah's courage began to crystallize. Every door she knocked on was another shaft of light piercing the heaviness that loomed overhead. Some faces lit up with recognition, while others reflected uncertainty. But she pressed on. Mr. Thompson is not a benign presence, she stated firmly to a neighbor whose brow furrowed with doubt. This is about protecting our families. Each interaction molded her into a more confident version of herself. Yet, inside, a flicker of fear remained, coiling like the tension in a drawn bowstring. What if her efforts caused Thompson to lash out? The risk was palpable. As night approached, she gathered the threads of her day and prepared to assemble the neighborhood group in her living room. She felt a shift within, a desire not only to lead, but also to unify. The reality of shared fears was transforming into a rallying point, an emblem of collective strength. When the doorbell rang announcing the first guests, her heart thundered in her chest. They were here, ready to stand together. The knot of anxiety in her stomach twisted tighter, but she harnessed it, converting dread into powerful determination. As she opened the door, a familiar face emerged among the crowd. Mrs. Hartman had arrived, bringing with her an entourage of support. But as they exchanged pleasantries, Sarah noticed a glint of fear in Mrs. Hartman's eyes. It was a stark reminder that realization could lead to silence, a potential roadblock in her mission to confront Mr. Thompson. The stakes had never felt higher, and their meeting now loomed large. Just as conversation rippled through the group, the door creaked open behind Sarah. The unmistakable silhouette of Mr. Thompson filled the doorway, an unsettling calm draping his features. Silence fell. She froze, grappling with the heightened reality of confrontation as her heart raced. Would she stand her ground, or would fear consume her? The time for action was collapsing into moments of stark clarity. There, on the precipice of confrontation, she faced both the depths of her trepidation and the flickering hope that change would rise in the darkest moments. As Sarah stood at the threshold, uncertainty coursed through her veins. Mr. Thompson's presence felt like a dark storm cloud, heavy and suffocating. She could sense the palpable shift in energy in the room. Fear wrapped around her neighbors like a shroud. They had gathered to support her, fueling her purpose. But now, with Thompson in front of her, it became clear that support must evolve into action. "Good evening, everyone." Thompson's voice sliced through the thick silence. There was a chilling familiarity to it, a deceptive calm that unnerved her. He was surveying the room, eyes flickering from face to face, assessing his audience. The confidence he radiated seemed unwavering, and Sarah felt that her resolve flickered under its weight. "We were just discussing some concerns about safety in the neighborhood," she responded, summoning a steadiness that felt precarious at best. Her voice remained firm, a facade masking the tempest inside. "Perhaps you should join us." It was an invitation laced with defiance. She would not back down. Thompson raised an eyebrow, the faintest hint of amusement dancing on his lips. "Is that so? I hope you're not spreading rumors. Fear has a funny way of watering them." The words cut, and she felt her heart race with indignation. "It's not fear, it's awareness. Knowledge is power, and we intend to protect our community." Even as she spoke, immense doubt clawed at her insides. Did she truly believe that? Did she have the strength to stand firm against him? But with every glance at the faces around her, anxious, defensive, they all mirrored her own plight. This moment wasn't merely about her. It was about them all. "Let's not turn this into a spectacle," he replied, voice smooth yet assertive. "I'm not the threat you think I am." Each syllable dripped with condescension. He stepped forward, his aura darkening the room, and for an unsettling moment, Sarah felt the urge to retreat. But retreating meant ceding territory, something she had fought so hard to reclaim. "Breathe," she told herself, grounding herself in the present. "Then, if you're here to discuss safety, we should lay everything out on the table. I know you've been watching me, and others have noted your presence. That's not a benign behavior," Sarah articulated, allowing her voice to rise, the fire in her belly igniting her feeble confidence anew. His calm facade cracked briefly, revealing irritation. "You misinterpret my actions," he snapped. "If you leave me alone, you won't have to worry about your little game." This wasn't just about him asserting dominance. It was a declaration of war. The implications of his threat burrowed into her thoughts, creating a swirling storm of anxiety and motivation. She sensed her neighbors leaning in, drawn by both Sarah's fortitude and Thompson's intimidation. As she stood there, a rush of realization struck her. This confrontation was not merely external, but an internal crucible for transforming her fear into strength. She could not allow Thompson's distorted reality to shape their narrative. Right now was the test of everything she had worked toward. In a bold move, she shifted her focus to the group. "This is why we need to unite. We must be vigilant, share our experiences, and refuse to be victims. It's our safety that's at stake." Thompson's eyes narrowed. "Unite? For what purpose? To chase shadows and build an enemy out of a neighbor?" "Yes," Sarah shot back, her pulse racing. "But only if you continue to act menacingly. We will not let fear grow in our homes." Her words reverberated through the room, igniting a ripple of silent solidarity among her neighbors. With that, the tone of the gathering shifted. Hushed murmurs began to outweigh Thompson's simmering dismissiveness. Sarah could feel the momentum building, her initial isolation fading. It was as though she had stood on the precipice and, amid the chaos, found her footing. As Thompson glanced around, his expression hardened. He was losing control, and that realization crystallized for her the fortitude she had unearthed. But the victory felt precarious. Not only had she acknowledged her strength, but she was also stirring something in her community that couldn't be contained. "Keep your eyes open, Sarah," Thompson finally said, voice low and vengeful. "You don't know what you've just unleashed." The weight of his threat soared through the air as he exited, but his departure did not quell the swell of empowerment building within her and the group. Harnessing this newly discovered strength, each of them could reshape their reality. A collective determination rose, mingled with dread, and they stood together against the encroaching darkness. However, what lay ahead was still shrouded in uncertainty. And as the room buzzed with murmurs of discussion, Sarah sensed the raw vulnerability of her power. As they shared their fears and stories in a newly ignited spirit of solidarity, one thing remained clear. The confrontation with Thompson had merely set the stage. Now, it was time for her to uncover deeper truths about her own capabilities and the true threat he wielded. But would the strength she had cultivated be enough to face whatever plans Thompson had set in motion? Each moment accelerated her resolve, yet chilled her with the understanding of how delicate her progress truly was. The true battle was only just beginning, and Sarah could feel it thrumming through the air like an electric charge. What consequence would her newfound strength bring, and how far was she willing to go? The days following the confrontation with Thompson passed in a whirlwind of tension and unexpected clarity. Each morning, Sarah woke with a tighter knot in her stomach, the remnants of his threat echoing in her mind. She had uncovered something within herself, yet the specter of doubt clung to her like a second skin. What was she willing to sacrifice for the safety of her neighbors? And what did that truly entail? Amid the looming uncertainty, she began a deeper exploration of her instincts and capabilities. Every time she ventured into her neighborhood, her senses heightened. She noted the shadows creeping along the alleyways and the rustle of leaves that seemed more pronounced. It was as if she had stepped into a different world, one where her heightened awareness was both a shield and a source of vulnerability. One evening, she decided to take a different route home, steering clear of the main streets. Perhaps it was a reckless impulse, or maybe a response to an internal need for control. The cool air wrapped around her, invigorating yet laced with a sense of foreboding. As she walked, Sarah found herself revisiting the themes of strength and agency that had surged during the meeting. Each step felt deliberate, as she reasserted her presence in a space she'd once perceived as threatening. Arriving home, the familiar comfort of her living room seemed diminished by the weight of her internal struggle. Her gaze landed on the alarm console that had been blinking with ever-increasing urgency. She had installed a security system months prior, a layer of protection she had taken for granted. Now, it felt like an instrument of empowerment. Sarah approached the console, examining its features and functionality. What had once seemed like a mere precaution became a tool for her to reclaim dominance over her environment. She began to familiarize herself with the system, spending hours reading manuals and watching online tutorials. She even discovered that the alarm could connect to her smartphone, allowing notifications of any unusual activities when she was away. Slowly, she grasped the mechanics of her newfound defense. Each piece of knowledge ignited a spark within her, solidifying the realization that she could be proactive rather than reactive. Instinctively, she started to think strategically, drafting plans not only for her security, but also for ways to further engage her neighbors. What if they pooled resources for better security options? What if they held trainings to familiarize everyone with their own systems? As possibilities swirled, Sarah felt the stirrings of her leadership abilities emerging more clearly than before. One night, as she sat in her dimly lit kitchen, her phone buzzed with a notification from the security app. A motion had been detected in her backyard. Heart racing, Sarah felt the rush of adrenaline. This was the moment she had prepared for. She could no longer afford to shrink back. Taking a deep breath, she accessed the live feed from the camera set up near her fence. The screen illuminated her face, revealing her determination. The sight of a figure lurking in her yard sent a jolt of fear through her. But this time, panic didn't seize her. Clarity emerged. She remembered her commitment not to be a victim. Grabbing her phone, she dialed 911, relaying her address and the situation in steadier-than-expected tones. The operator's voice, calm and reassuring, further bolstered her resolve. Waiting for the police felt like an eternity. Yet it was within those moments that Sarah understood something crucial about herself. She would fight. Not with fists, but with presence, preparedness, and strategy. As headlights pierced the darkness, illuminating her yard, she felt a surge of anticipation. Would the figure be caught? Would her proactive outmaneuvering bear fruit? The reality of standing firm in her resolve clashed with the unknown consequences of the choices she was making. With the police arriving and the figure retreating into the darkness, she felt a wave of empowerment wash over her. She had faced her fears head-on. More importantly, she had taken action where she once felt paralyzed. But as she stood against the doorframe, a new realization settled in. These defenses were merely the beginning. If Thompson was indeed plotting, she knew this confrontation was far from over. The true essence of her growth lay ahead, and she could sense that whatever lay in wait was far more dangerous than shadows. What new insights would her journey reveal, and how far would she be pushed before she, too, would need to confront the darker elements of herself? The events of that night set Sarah on a spiraling trajectory of self-discovery and resilience. Even as she awoke the next morning, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins, a nascent sense of empowerment replaced the doubt that previously haunted her. It was as if she had unlocked a door within herself, and the light spilling forth illuminated possibilities she had never considered. Determined not to let Thompson's threat define her actions, Sarah began sketching a plan. The alarm system had revealed not just an intruder, but the edges of her own strength. Each beep and chime from the security device now served as a reminder of her capability to manage her environment rather than simply endure it. That afternoon, a sudden urge propelled her to visit the local hardware store, where she gathered supplies for what she envisioned as a community initiative. She studied the aisles, hands brushing over materials like wood, screws, and lights while mentally drafting a lesson plan for a Home Security 101 session. It was crucial. Her neighbors needed to feel that same surge of empowerment she had tasted. As she worked to arrange the practicalities, Sarah's mind flitted back to the figure in her yard, the way she had viewed danger with newfound clarity. She questioned her instincts. Was the figure truly a threat, or had it merely served as a catalyst for her transformation? The ambiguity teased at her psyche. What if confronting that darkness was necessary for her full evolution? Freeing herself from the entanglements of anxious contemplation, Sarah found herself in conversation with a neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, who was a retired schoolteacher. It was a casual chat that quickly evolved into her pitch for the community session. "I want to help people feel safe in their homes, Mrs. Henderson," Sarah said, her conviction evident. "I think we can do it together. Share resources, teach each other." Mrs. Henderson's eyebrows lifted in surprise at the sudden fervor radiating from Sarah. "That sounds ambitious. You think they'll be interested?" "If I can feel this way, I know they can too," she replied, the words flowing with purpose. Confidence can be contagious, can it? The idea took root, nourished by the validation of her neighbor's interest. Yet beneath that budding confidence, another layer of doubt began to whisper. Would her neighbors see the value in her plan? Would they view her as a leader, or merely a woman grappling with her own fears? Attempting to suppress emerging insecurities, Sarah spent the following days marketed her initiative, creating flyers, and knocking on doors to share her vision. The reactions were varied. Some were intrigued, and a few were skeptical. But there was a flicker of enthusiasm with each genuine conversation, and that compelled her forward. As the session drew closer, every new setback felt magnified. One neighbor dismissed her efforts outright, attempting to minimize her experience and mock her insecurity with sharp, biting words. It stung, but rather than cower, Sarah squared her shoulders. Growth had awakened resilience in her. Not merely a defensive mechanism, but a powerful agent of change. On the evening of the training session, anticipation melded with anxiety as she arranged chairs in the community center. Willingness to embrace the unknown filled the room, and the sight of familiar faces inflamed the fire within her. Holding strong, Sarah initiated a discussion that wove through strategic planning and shared experiences, carefully crafted as much from her challenges as from her newfound insights. In that moment, she realized this was not just about security. It was about bravery, connection, and confronting the shadows that had loomed over her neighborhood and herself. Each story shared chipped away at the collective insecurities they faced, revealing a deeper bond forged in vulnerability. But as the evening concluded and neighbors slowly filtered out, one thought gripped her. The threats they faced were not just external, but internal as well. Would this growth be enough to stand against Thompson if he chose to respond? That specter remained. She felt the weight shift across her shoulders, a reminder that this was only the beginning. Each weighty truth uncovered had summoned deeper questions. Just how far would this journey force her to delve into the darker elements within herself? The answers loomed as inevitable as the next confrontation, and she steeled herself for what might come next. The complexity of her mind was now a battleground, where personal growth and external threats would collide. And in that precarious balance between courage and fear, she could sense the next storm approaching. One demanding she reveal more than she had ever been willing to share. The days blurred into one another as Sarah grappled with the consequences of her newfound resolve. The community training session had ignited a fire, but the undercurrents of tension remained palpable. Each time she stepped outside, she felt Thompson's shadow enveloping her. Every corner of the neighborhood now a potential threat. Yet that anxiety was tempered by the strength of a collective voice steadily shifting in her favor. The day of reckoning arrived unexpectedly, as a crisp autumn morning promised both clarity and chaos. Sarah's phone buzzed with messages from neighbors sharing ominous whispers of Thompson's behavior. He had been seen loitering near the school, looking for opportune moments to engage with children. The community's collective resolve ignited full force as they prepared to confront the very darkness Sarah had been rallying them against. Sarah could feel her heart racing as she organized a meeting at the community center. This was no longer just a safety initiative. It had evolved into a unified movement. She had instilled a sense of responsibility in her neighbors, and now they were ready to protect not only their children but also each other. As she stood before the small gathered crowd, breathing in the charged air filled with apprehension and determination, she knew this was her moment to solidify her growth. Today isn't just about us. It's about creating a culture of safety and vigilance. Sarah began, her voice echoing through the hall. The faces around her signaled support, but also fear. Together, we can hold each other accountable and ensure our neighborhood remains a community, not just a collection of houses. Each word dripped with a newfound conviction, palpable and forceful. The decision to speak out against Thompson took root within her, transforming the fear once embedded in her heart into a fierce protective instinct. As she hammered down plans for increased neighborhood watch efforts and established communication channels with law enforcement, she saw the expressions of her neighbors shift toward solidarity and strength. Yet, doubt whispered in the back of her mind. Was it enough? Would confronting Thompson push him further into the shadows? Or would he retaliate against her and her children? That uncertainty gnawed at her resolve, but Sarah felt fortified against it. Her children and neighbors deserved her courage. The meeting ended with a momentum that spread throughout the community like wildfire. Neighbors exchanged phone numbers, designated watch shifts, and committed to reporting every suspicion. As Sarah walked home, exhilaration surged within her. Little did she know, her illustration of resilience had forced Thompson to reveal his true nature. That night, he responded. A loud thud at the door broke the evening's calm, sending adrenaline coursing through Sarah's veins. Heart-pounding, she stepped to the door with the steady heartbeat of the alarm system echoing in her mind. As she peered through the peephole, dread washed over her. It was him. "Sarah, we need to talk." His voice oozed through the door, slick and insistent. A flicker of recognition and understanding surged through her. He was trying to manipulate the narrative, to instill fear. But there was something profound in her realization. She had stepped into a power that he no longer controlled. "Leave, Thompson. We know who you are," Sarah replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. She had confronted her fears and uncovered truths about herself that lay shrouded in doubt. To her surprise, it was the flicker of fear in his eyes that shook her. A man of intimidation was now merely human, exposed. With each word, she emboldened both her own realization and the neighbors waiting for her to muster the courage. "If you think you can threaten this community, you will find us united, not bending to your will." Perhaps it was the strength of her conviction, or perhaps the weight of the community's backing, that caused Thompson to falter. He stepped back from the door, mask slipping briefly to expose the desperate man behind the facade. "You think you can stop me?" His voice trembled, revealing cracks in his bravado. "Yes, I do," she pushed, her heart steadying with each assertion. "And we will not be silent witnesses anymore." The door clicked shut, and Sarah leaned against it, breathless. She felt the pressure of the world lift, yet she also sensed shadows lingering. The confrontation was far from over, but she'd proven to herself and others that she was no longer just a mother living in fear. She was a warrior capable of gathering the strength to confront both external and internal battles. The following days brought on more support from the community, their shared experience becoming a tapestry woven with resilience. They gathered in strength but rested within vulnerability, transforming their fears into power. As Sarah looked over her children playing outside, she recognized the profound shift within herself. Once on the precipice of indecision, she had claimed the agency to protect those she loved. Surrounded by vigilance and solidarity, the darkness still loomed, but it had diminished. Together they had charted the territory of bravery, proving that standing firm could transmute fear into empowerment. In that growing light, Sarah learned a vital truth. Real transformation did not grant immunity from struggle. Instead, it invited a deeper understanding of oneself and others, offering the foundation to build an everlasting legacy of safety, courage, and community. And as she stood amid newfound unity, she felt at peace, ready for whatever emerged from the shadows, with the unshakable knowledge that she was never alone. The story had come full circle, weaving a narrative not just of personal triumph, but of a community revived. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True champions of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting our channel through these actions.